Hey Excel fans, David here. Let's take a look at this youth soccer assignment, kind of get an idea where we're going with this. So I'm going to click on the youth soccer right here, and inside here we're going to find the instructions and the file that you're going to use. Now do not be intimidated by the instructions. Yes, they're long, but I hold your hand the whole way. So here we are, I'm in the instructions, and if I look, I see it's 17 pages long, but when I scroll through here, this takes up quite a bit of space, and then I have pictures, some little screenshots showing you, hey, this is a name box, this is a more arrow, showing the things that I want inside cells, or when we're looking at the custom validation, the messages that you're going to put in there. And you're going to see the messages here in the bold. Those are the things I'm going to have you put into your message. All right. So what is it going to look like? Well, let me flip over to an Excel sheet. So here we are. When you first open up, you're going to have a documentation sheet, and you're going to need to put your name in there. You're going to need to put the date, and then we're going to use something that's called define names. Now, define names are names that we name a range. For example, we have an address, and that address is going to be found on the receipt sheet. So it says receipt, and then I have an exclamation point. That means it's coming from the receipt sheet, and it's B10. Now, B10 has the $sign in front of the B, the $sign in front of the 10, meaning that is an absolute cell reference. No matter if I copy or do anything, it's always going to reference there for the address. Now, if I go up to the name box right here, and I want to go look at address and click on address, here it is. I can see that I'm in B10, and here's my address. So here's the finished sheet, what it looks like. Things I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to have you put a comment in here. This little red triangle in the upper right corner is a comment indicator. You're going to have a comment. And then I'll have you put in a date for the players' names. You'll enter a player's name. Notice I have a little note pops up. It says to input player's name. The next few cells are kind of unique, and that is I have a list inside. So for an age group, I can select the age group, and notice let's put U4, and when I change U4 here, if I come down here, it updates right here as well. And then I have shirt size. Well, how do I do this? Well, let me just do a quick example. I'm going to click here, click on my date, registration date. That is a named range. So if I say use a named range in a formula, I just did, equals registration date. That is a range name. Simple as that. Hit enter. Now, why is it 44714? Well, that's because today is 44,714 days from January 1st, 1900. All I have to do is come up here to my home tab, format this as a date. So I can come down here and I'm just going to say a short date. What do the pound signs represent? Well, that means my column is too narrow. And if I remember right, I have you adjust the column width to size 12. Now, when you do that, see this line right here? Oh, that's going to throw me off a little bit because that line says this is where my page break happens. Remember, if I come over here and click on, let me zoom in a little bit. Oh, wrong way. Let me zoom in here. It says this is page 1 and this is page 2. I don't want to leave any orphaned columns. I don't want to do a control P and see that there's page 1. Here's page 2. That doesn't make sense. Why would I do that? That's crazy. And then here's my documentation sheet. So I'm going to come over here and I can adjust or scale my sheet. All I did is I clicked on the line, drug it over. Now I'm going to go back to normal view. I always want to go back to normal view. When I set up my print area, I'm going to highlight this area right here and set this as a print area so I only print there. Let me just show you a couple other things here. All this stuff is in the instructions, so that's going to be pretty good. Even adjusting the column. I have these little buttons. When you download yours, you're not going to have these buttons. These are macro buttons, so we're going to record a macro that do certain things. And this particular one is going to create a PDF. So it's going to come down here. It's going to set this as a print area, and it's going to print a PDF so that I can hand to the customer and say, here's your receipt. When I do anything in here, for example, my registration date here, that's on a toggle. If I say no, they did not register early, notice that the discount rate down here goes away and they're going to be charged $75. If I go here, the discount rate is applied. Now it's only $70. Be cautious when you're doing the instructions that all of these cells right here have the little drop down option. See, all of them have the little arrow so that we can pick from the list. And you're going to find that list over here in the player's measurements. All right, let's get back to those macro buttons. The first one, create a PDF. So when I click on it, it's going to take a second here. I'm going to click on it and I'll create a PDF. It'll open up my PDF. Notice it highlighted the area. Now, mine is not set correctly because I just messed it up right there when you were watching. I adjusted my column width to show that date. If I hadn't done that, it would have showed the whole PDF. So I see the PDF. I have a header. There's my name, registration, receipt, and then I have my PDF. Now, one of the cool things that I'm going to have you do here is I'm going to have you auto-name the sheet so that when we come up here, it says Christopher Miller.pdf. That's the parent's name. Now watch this. If I come over here and change this to, let's change it to Steve Bass. Control Enter. I just like Control Enter because it keeps the cell the active cell. Go ahead and hit Print Receipt. What happens? Now it says Steve Bass is the PDF. Pretty cool. So that auto names the PDF. Now this transfer data. So I'm going to come over here. Here's my information. And if I click on one of these and try to type, my sheet is locked. See, it says it's trying to protect or trying to get into a sheet that just doesn't work. I've locked it. So I can't go in there and change anything. But watch this. I come over here and say transfer data. Boom. What it does is it comes over to the sheet, unlocks the sheet, put Steve Bass right here in the very bottom. Done. So one of the questions that students sometimes ask me is, how do I get this to work? Well, I tell them go control down arrow, takes me to the last one, and then I say down arrow one more time. Why? Because I want to go to the bottom, and that's where I'm going to paste the information. Notice I do not have any boxes around here because when I bring the values from here, I am not doing a copy and paste. I'm doing a copy and paste special. Now let me show you the difference. I have to unlock this sheet real quick. If I'm going to go right click, unprotect sheet. If I come in here and just go paste, notice I have the boxes. That's not exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do an undo, Control Z. When I come up here to do my paste special, I'm going to just paste the values only. And that's found right here, values, no boxes. So if you have boxes, stop your macro, go back, re-record a macro. For here, I don't want to have a double, so I'm going to get rid of this guy. I'm going to get rid of Steve Bass here. In fact, actually, what I'll probably do is let me just delete this whole row here, delete this record as well. There, clean that up. Now, if I come up here and protect my worksheet, actually, I don't even need to do that. Watch this. If I come back in here and say transfer data, boom, I come back over here. By default, it's locked because I lock it in my macro. All right, go back here. Again, if I were to do this again, I would maybe pull this over, scale my sheet. How would I do that? Format. I'm going to do my column width. I'm going to say automatic one page. Okay, now it should fit. However, when I make my macro, it may screw it up. Let me just try it one more time. Create a PDF. Yeah, see, it put that line back in there. So I need to do that earlier on in my process where I didn't change it, because it wants to have things set when I built my macro. All right, I think that's it. Everything's in the instructions. Don't think you can get this done in like 15 minutes. Budget at least an hour, because it's going to take you a little bit to get through it, but budget some time. It's kind of a fun project. This is one that you can put in your portfolio later and say, hey, look at this cool stuff I can do with Excel. All right, that's it for me, guys. Have fun. We'll chat with you later.